Welcome to The Point of View. It's your favorite current affairs show on television. Here we bring the right guests. We ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. And this series we're running is on COVID-19 or coronavirus. We're really bringing you as much information as we can to keep you informed and also to help you prepare for what's coming, whatever way it pans out. It's interactive, so if you're watching on TV, we have a WhatsApp number on the screen. Please get in touch with your questions and your comments. And if you're watching on social media as well, please keep the comments coming through. So today I'm going to start from the science and I'm going to end with the economics. So two very interesting guests. I'll tell you about them as soon as I return. Stay with us.
Unlock banking with biometrics. Now you can access the Absa mobile banking app using your fingerprint or facial recognition. Download today. That's Africanacity. That's Absa.
So tonight on the show, we'll try and understand the cost of COVID-19 to the Ghanaian economy. We already know that oil prices have plunged, but that's not the only problem we'll be facing. Because transportation has been affected, quite a number of airlines are struggling. Indeed, the hotel industry is reeling, as is the logistics sector. We'll be speaking to Ken Thompson. He's my studio guest live tonight, and he's going to explain with diagrams what's going to happen to this economy and what we should be doing now so we don't go down with whatever is going to happen. So he's already waiting. Before that, though, I want to do a bit more education on COVID-19. Don't forget, the president on Sunday night announced what he called social distancing measures. So no public gatherings. He also asked that the travel advisory be reviewed. Today, we refused a few airlines. Ethiopian Airline wanted to land in Accra. We didn't allow them. Most of the airlines that came in had fewer passengers. We refused 2 Italians yesterday. A few Chinese wanted to come in. We said no. But the social distancing aspect of the president's directives have not clearly been understood. So what I have tonight, what I want to do is to interview an assistant professor of public health in the person of Nana Kofi Kwachi, MPH. He's a master of public health. Nana's very interesting. Let me read a few things about him. He's already sitting here. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Brilliant. So he's an assistant professor in the Department of Health Policy and Management, New York University School of Global Public Health. He's also a doctoral candidate. He is a health economist and a policy analyst specializing in healthcare systems and health service research, with particular focus in financing and provider payment mechanisms. He teaches courses at the undergraduate and master's level, such as health policy in a global world, health and society in a global context. And he's also won a lot of awards. For his work, he received New York University's Future of Africa Award in the faculty in 2018, becoming the youngest recipient of the honor. He's done a few other things we'll talk about later. Now, what I find fascinating about what he's going to talk about is that a lot of people talk about social distancing, but nobody's really explained why it's important. Why are we being told to stay home, self-isolate, and all of this? So, Nana, welcome to the show again.
Thank you.
So, your area of study as a health policy analyst, how does it fit into the conversation on coronavirus and COVID-19?
Well, I'm a health economist, so my primary concern is with how exactly we execute these kind of policies in an emergency situation like this, from a healthcare financing perspective, and then broadly speaking, what it really means for the wider economy. Especially thinking about how inequities and social inequalities might play out or inhibit our ability to be effective in this respect.
I see. So Are you part of those who agree that this social distancing is key to containing the spread?
It's pretty critical. It's probably the most important thing we can do right now.
Okay.
There are options, border control and all these things, but as far as we stand the risk of having ongoing community transmission, we absolutely have to consider that as a top priority.
So what is social distancing?
Okay, social distancing in its basic form is the idea that we're trying to create distance in a literal sense between individuals in the society. We want to make sure that we're reducing opportunities for transmission. That's the whole point of it. So when we get a directive like, stay 1 meter away from somebody or stay 2 meters away, the whole logic of it is basically to reduce the risk that you're going to come in contact with any viral particles the other person might be shedding, to reduce the risk of transmission. But in a more practical sense, when we're dealing with a crisis of this nature, high transmissibility, high infectiousness, high health consequences for people who get really sick, it really requires us to interrupt the flow of daily life. Status quo cannot operate anymore. We have to be, students have to stay at home, office workers who can afford to have to stay at home. But that also means that low-wage earners, people who do day jobs also have to stay at home. And if the plan that we're putting in place doesn't allow everybody to do that, then we're not going to be successful in executing this properly.
So is this what China did, for which we've seen the number of cases reduce?
China did this in a very drastic way. I mean, they at some point had the equivalent of the Ghanaian and Burkinabe population quarantined.
Wow.
Almost 58 million people quarantined at some point.
Meaning they were not moving in and out of their homes?
There were regulations about when you could move out of your home. There were regulations about how many people from a household could leave and when. That's a very draconian, drastic way to do it. And it's the resort, it's where you have to go if the transmissions are getting out of hand and if you're not able to intervene earlier on in the sequence. Right now in a place like Ghana, lots of African countries, we're early on in that infection curve. So we can do kind of moderate social distancing, but we have to be observant of it, we have to be intentional about it, and we absolutely have to be critical and focus in dealing with the fact that for some people in the country, social distancing is going to have economic and financial consequences for them. Low-income people, wage earners, day traders and makola, hawkers in the street. If there's no plan for some kind of income support to incentivize them to stay home, then they will not. In that case, we have to use those kind of draconian measures, and whether or not that those would be effective in the long run is up in the air.
If you look at the policies that Korea, Japan, and co used, it would seem as if they were more rigorous with their borders initially. There's a lot of testing before then. And if those don't work, then the social distancing becomes a way of containment. Is that the logical flow of this?
Exactly. If your first thing is to prevent an in-country infection, but you want to avoid any scenario you're importing the virus in the first place. So strict border controls, effective health checkpoint, border entry checkpoint health checks. You want to be able to do that stuff. If that fails and you have the virus now imported, then your contact tracing is your next line of defense. And in the contact tracing, you have to be absolutely precise. You have to know where the people are, you have to find them quickly, and you have to get them isolated from the general population. If that fails, then you are standing the risk of having community transmissions where you can no longer really identify how the people who are being identified as infected are connected anymore. And when that happens, then social distancing has to go from moderate to pretty intensive. And in the most exaggerated ways, then you go for what China did in Wuhan.
This afternoon when the press conference was held, Dr. Bedu Sarkodie tells us 7 infections. So it started at 2, and then on Saturday, Sunday, it was 6, and then Monday, 1 more, so 7.
Yeah.
They've traced 381 contacts.
Okay.
There's been no in-country infection yet. Where are we in this curve? Is this the time for social distancing, or this is the time for border controls?
Well, it depends on how accurate the tracing has been. If we trace 380 and that is everyone who was contacted or anyone who's a potential contact, great. Then we are safe, or the risk is somewhat mitigated. But if it's 380 out of 500, I don't want to speculate, but I'm saying if it's not 100% of all the people, then there's always the risk of ongoing community transmission, in which case some degree of social distancing would be necessary until we identify all those contacts or until enough time has passed during a social distancing regime that the people who are sick have now recovered and they're no longer infectious.
So you're saying if we can't confirm that all those who were contacted by the 7 have been identified and isolated,
yes,
you need to start social distancing.
To some degree.
And assume that you already have in-country infections.
To some degree.
Wow. How does this work in practice? Do you have a model? I think you had some figures to show, some diagrams to show how social distancing works to flatten out the disease.
I did.
So maybe my guys will put it on the screen. So explain. Okay. So there's the red ball and then there's the...
So we have the orange ball representing sick people or people who have been newly infected. The logic of this virus, or at least the best knowledge we have right now, is that once people get infected and they recover, they're no longer infectious. They can't get reinfected by the virus and they can't pass it on anymore.
Okay. So you show us 4 scenarios. So guys, move to the next slide. So essentially, in the top left corner, you have the orange ball showing somebody infected. And in the top left corner, you are saying there's no restriction.
Yes.
No social distancing. Everybody does what they do.
It's a free-for-all.
So this is before the president made his announcement.
Okay.
Why are the balls moving?
So this is just people circulating around the community in their everyday lives. This is a simulation that the Washington Post did.
Great.
And what they're showing here is basically, with the dots, people just going around in a 200-person community. It's a random stochastic model, so it's random. People just contacting each other and passing it on.
It's turning redder and redder and redder.
Exactly. So every time one of those red balls hits a gray ball, we consider that we hypothesize that's a transmission event. And the chart on the top really is showing, among the population, how many people are going to get sick or how many people are sick at any given time, really. So at the beginning, it's a very low number. As you can see, it rises at an increasing rate for a little bit before it tables off, and then it begins to decrease over time. That phase where we are seeing that exponential increase is what we have to make sure we don't get to. That's what every country has to make sure
so
doesn't reach.
The red mountain,
yes,
we want to flatten it.
We want to make sure that's as flat as possible.
Because the higher it goes, the more people are dying or getting infected.
The more people are getting infected, and we know that in this case, about 20% of all the people who actually get infected will have a pretty serious illness which will need some kind of clinical intervention. So the game you're playing is a race between the number of people who are going to be infected at any peak period and the capacity of your health system to respond to their health needs. And you don't want a scenario where the number of people in need of critical care exceeds the capacity of the healthcare system.
So if we don't do anything, the top left scenario is going to happen. And as many people as possible will get infected. And we can't cope with the numbers.
If there's no controls whatsoever in any country at all, you will see large-scale infections. Italy is a great example of that in particular, because the evidence right now suggests that for about 4 weeks there were ongoing community transmissions and there was no real urgent policy response to it. Today, the data that came back suggested that Italy just today recorded the highest number of deaths of any country during this epidemic and saw an increase of over 4,000 cases.
Wow.
That's avoidable if you're able to prevent scenario 1 from happening, where you have a total free.
Now, what is scenario 2? I see a bar separating 2 boxes in top right corner.
Yes.
You call that quarantine attempt.
Yes.
What's the meaning of this?
So this is basically, think back to what China did, where they enforced a pretty strict quarantine. At the beginning, in their case, or in their specific example, they quarantined most of Wuhan, large parts of the population, off from the rest of the general population.
So the quarantine is the line.
Exactly.
So those on the left side are those who are in the middle of the disease.
In the area where the infection is. Now, the reason why the bars are going apart is because a quarantine is not just a question of public health, protection. There's a matter of social disruption, and there's a matter of also people's human rights. Are you able to really enforce a draconian quarantine where people don't get to see their loved ones, there's no visitation, all the providers who are performing their service in the quarantine area don't ever leave? If you're able to do that, then the bars stay closed. But as far as there are loopholes in there, people are going to get out of the quarantine area. Even if it's one person who gets out there, if you don't have any social distancing measures outside the quarantine area, you're going to see a second peak like we have in the 2 peak mountains at the top.
So
there.
if the orifice keeps opening,
yes,
the red is slipping from the infected place to the non-infected place.
Exactly.
That's why the bar is, the red chart up there is going up.
Exactly.
But this is better than the left one.
It's definitely better than the first one, because at least you are mitigating not just the number of people who are coming into contact with infected persons, but you're also reducing the rate at which people get infected. So that even if you have the same total number of infections, the infections you have at the peak moment is still lower. That's why we call it flattening out the curve. And that gives your health system a chance to respond effectively.
But is this what we are doing? Are we doing this China type?
The suggestion is that for the people who have been, the 7 people, for example, who are confirmed, they are in isolation. So that's the logic there. But if all the people who they contacted as well are not in isolation, and there are few of them also in circulation in the general public, then we would have a quarantine attempt that might not be entirely successful.
All right. So we're trying to understand social distancing, and my guest is really explaining. So what China tried is what he just showed.
Yes.
Then there's something you call moderate isolation.
Yes.
What does that mean? Can you show me that?
So moderate distancing.
That's the bottom left.
Bottom left. That's what we have there, where you see that even though you have, similar to the top left, there's no real quarantine, no real isolation of individuals. You're asking people instead to stay put where they are.
Okay.
So shelter in place. Stay where you are. Don't come out. Schools closed down.
Schools
Everybody
closed,
should go
churches
home.
closed.
Everything.
Very similar to Ghana.
Very similar to what we suggested in Ghana. And what you end up doing there is reducing the number of people who are moving about and contacting each other, and thereby reducing the number of transmission events among the population.
Okay.
So even if ultimately everybody does get infected, the rate at which that happens is much slower. The number of people infected at any time is a small portion of the population.
So you can deal with that.
The healthcare system can respond effectively.
So everything you are doing, you want the graph on top, the red part to be flat.
As flat as possible.
And small.
Exactly.
The higher it is, the more people are getting infected.
Exactly.
But there's a final option in the right quadrant, bottom right. What's that?
So that's intensive distancing, where
intensive distancing.
Yes, that's what you're seeing right now in countries like France, countries like Italy, where in France right now there's a very strict measure in place around when people can go out, what reasons they can have for going out, permissions they need to go out. And the idea of doing that is to make sure that you're reducing the number of people who are even walking around. So we are doing really what is not really even a moderate distancing yet. We are doing a very light distancing where largely so far it's people who can afford to stay home who are staying home, people who are aware of the risk who are staying home. But for the large amounts of population across the country, people who have to make a living working day by day, they can't afford to do that yet because there's no interventions in place to support that. So they're still walking around. If we want to really to make this effective, then we have to have all those people supported in some way so that we have as many people as possible staying put.
So if we get in-country infections, would you recommend that we do this where no market, no movement in Trotro, everybody stays home?
It's not even a question of recommending it. It's where we'd have to go eventually, because the reality here is that fighting this disease, we don't have a vaccine, we don't have a cure. So if you have ongoing community transmissions, you have to interrupt the transmission somehow. And if we're not able to get a handle of it quick enough, then it will be necessary to have intensive social distancing involving, like what we saw in China, what you're seeing in Italy or France right now.
Wow. I wish we could talk more about this, but I want to end quickly. You said something also about the risk factors that make it, because we're not talking about the fact that if you get the disease, you will die.
Yes.
But there are certain things that predispose you to quicker death.
Yes.
So guys, move to the next 2 slides, or the next slide. He had very interesting things he showed, where, not this one, the next one, where there are certain conditions that predispose a person to die.
Yes.
This one.
Yes.
So what's this?
So we're looking here at the risk factors for people to end up developing serious illness if they contract the COVID-19 infection. The 5 main ones that we talk about, the leading ones so far from the data: heart disease, high blood pressure, lung disease, kidney disease, and diabetes. You might recall that today the first mortality recorded in Burkina Faso was one of the deputy vice presidents of the National Assembly, a 62-year-old with diabetes. So for individuals who have these conditions, their risk is especially high. So the idea behind social distancing, for the 80% of us who are not going to have any symptoms or mild to moderate symptoms, is a question of mutual responsibility. Preventing ourselves from being carriers and passing it on, so that these people, especially older people as well, are not infected or affected by our actions and don't go on to develop serious illness that the health system cannot really cope with.
Let me read a quick message before you go. Sego Kojo Williams says, in Wuhan, from the 23rd of January until now, nobody has been allowed in or out. It's been a total lockdown situation. At some point, even persons weren't allowed to drive out of their homes. As I speak, though, their cases are so low, so there's still a high level of control. And this person is writing from China.
Yes.
So from 23rd January to today is 18th March. Can't get out of your house.
Yeah.
Wow, I hope it doesn't get there. But thank you.
Of course.
We'll talk to you again later on. My guest for the first part of the show has been a health economist, Nana Kofi Kwache, who's really explained this social distancing thing. So I think what he's trying to say is that, look, let's stay home as much as possible. Let's avoid the large-scale gatherings so we can contain this. When we come back, Ken Thompson, CEO of Dalex, is going to also show us some numbers. He's been looking at the many sectors that Corona is hitting in Ghana. And it's not a pretty picture. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Point of View. So that was part one. I have now Ken Kwamina Thompson. He always dresses like an Igbo chief. It's good to have you.
Thank you, Bernard. Good to see you too.
You look like a Nigerian senator. And you have their height too.
Without the cash.
Good to see you. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you,
How
Bernard.
is business?
Business is fantastic.
Is it?
Absolutely fantastic.
Dalex?
Oh, yes.
Powerful.
Power.
Joe Jackson, everybody.
Everybody's there. Everybody's fine.
I love it. Yesterday, the Minister of Finance went to Parliament. I want to read a few things he said. It was a brief statement on coronavirus before we come to your presentation. Mr. Speaker, permit me to use this opportunity to provide an update to this august house on the fiscal implications of coronavirus and the measures being put in place to pay depositors. He says, even though events of the coronavirus are still unfolding, preliminary analysis undertaken by the ministry shows that the virus will impact negatively on petroleum receipts due to the collapse of international crude oil prices, custom receipts, other receipts, expenditure, health-related, and financing conditions on the fiscal front. More generally, it is affecting our tourism, travel and conference, FDI, international trade, food and nutrition, and poverty reduction. Then he says, measures are being put in place to close the financing gap in the 2020 budget that could result from the impact of the coronavirus. This may include withdrawal from the Ghana Stabilization Fund occasioned by anticipated shortfall in annual budget funding. We will come to this house to seek for approval. We are also discussing with the World Bank to tap into a $12 billion World Bank Group fast-track COVID-19 facility. When you hear the word facility, it means it's money they are lending to help close the financing gap. In addition, we are discussing with the IMF to access part of a $10 billion facility. All right, let's come to Ken. So Ken and Ken, I remember I interviewed the two of you in 2016.
Yes,
Ken and Ken.
Ken and Ken.
He became minister.
Well, yes, maybe you never know. There's still hope for me.
So, what do you make of where we are with this? As a businessman, what do you make of this?
You know, first, let me say that really we should be at a war footing. This is war. And really, we have to thank Honorable Nanado for recognizing it very quickly enough and putting the measures in place. I mean, it's good for people like me. I mean, I'm over 50, I'm slightly overweight, I have high blood pressure. You know, if it gets me, I'm dead. and you may survive. And from what I hear, people die from the complications.
Yes.
And the complications require ventilators, extra. So if this thing gets out of hand, we're in trouble. We'll put a lot of pressure on the health system. So far, we've been told that the economy has been shut down. Things have been shut down for 4 weeks on review. If you really want to know what will happen, watch CNN. Yes, it's totally out of our control. And if you think about China, this thing started in January and we're March. We've also got to remember that the measures we put in place were not because we wanted them, it was because of things happening outside the country. So unless that changes, I don't see how, we will change. We can't change. So prepare yourself for the long haul. It's not going to be 4 weeks. It's going to be much longer.
You think so?
Well, I can only base it on what is available on
It'll
CNN.
be more than 4 weeks.
It has to be more than 4, because if the hot spots are still hot, we can't do anything about it. In the US, they expect that even up to 1.2 million people will die. That's what they're saying. In the worst case, they expect over 130 million people to be infected. They say that it will go into the summer. So 4 weeks.
So the president or whoever is announcing the 4 weeks is not really in control.
No. But we put in the measures because of something that was happening outside the country. If the things are happening outside the country haven't changed, of course, we can't do anything about it.
Wow.
So, prepare yourself for the long haul so you don't get disappointed. Because if you're thinking that in 4 weeks' time things will come back to normal, then I don't see how that's going to happen. If the people in America are saying that will come to summer, if the Italians, there are still infections, there are more deaths. Today I read that there were 475 something deaths, I think yesterday. If it hasn't changed, what's going to change in Ghana? And this thing is so serious. We have to do everything we can to make sure it doesn't come to our shores.
So the critical thing is to prevent infections in here.
We have to do everything possible. We have to do everything possible, because if it happens, our systems are going to be under a lot of pressure.
We can't cope.
Well, let's say it will be stretched.
Okay, let's start what we know about the economy so far. What has happened so far globally with the travel chaos and all these things? What is your analysis of what this means for our economy now?
No, okay. So let's say that we're all running a race. We're all running. Mm-hmm. We're not running. So we're all running to in a race, and we're running towards a better Ghana. Mm-hmm. What is happening is that we've been asked to reduce. We're running to reduce to a crawl, and in the crawl, some of us will not get there, and some people will die. Economically, that's what it means.
From running to crawling.
To crawling, and some people will die. Basically, that's what it means. I remember,
wow.
As I was coming on this program, my brother-in-law said, "Give us hope." Well, it is what it is. It's not mine saying. That's what it is. Because you shut down for 4 weeks, things come to a halt, and unfortunately, some people will die. Some businesses will die, and that's the reality. The thing about it,
die.
Well, you might as well be dead.
Wow.
The thing about it too is that you might as well be dead. The thing about it too is that it's not going to be 4 weeks. It can't be 4 weeks. It's not possible. China is nearly 3 months, and Ghana is 4 weeks. It's not possible. It's not possible. I'm not a statistician, but common sense tells me it's not possible. So let's prepare ourselves for the long haul.
Wow. Which sector will... Obviously, which are the sectors that will start dying? Since you are saying there's going to be death. Now I'll go first.
No, I'll go first. I think we need to start running through the sectors.
Okay.
Then we'll see. But of course, there'll be layoffs.
Yeah.
There's effects along the value chain. Some salaries will not be paid. There'll be bankruptcies. Mm-hmm. But overall, there'll be winners and also be losers. There'll be winners and losers. Mm-hmm.
There'll be some winners?
Yeah, that's of course. Some
people will benefit.
Oh, yes. There's some people now in the Bahamas with their laptops and their tablets and just counting their money. But we'll get there. But let's start from government.
Yes.
The government of Ghana, the oil price has crashed.
Yes.
It's now I hear the budget was 60%, was $60, now it's 31.
So we are losing $29 per barrel.
Yes.
Already.
It's
for our oil.
So revenue has crashed. Import duties, we depend a lot on import duties for revenue. That's crashed. It's crashed, yes. And remember that the government is the largest player in the economy. It's the biggest employer, it's the biggest spender. So whatever happens in the government space is critical. And already we're saying that 3 items, our interest on loans, our wages and salaries and statutory payments, almost over 95% of our income. So this is serious.
And don't forget the free SHS, the money is from the oil.
Let's not even go there. Then you have people that are exploring for oil. Mm. When you are doing oil explorations, you can only break even at a certain price. Mm-hmm. And our oil exploring our oil is expensive because you got to go offshore. So sadly, a lot of those operations become uneconomic. So
already Talo is laying off.
thank you. So the projections that you made for your inflow are not going to come in. So what happens? There are layoffs, there are delays.
And there's no new exploration.
Exactly, new exploration, because it doesn't make sense.
Planned money also deferred.
Deferred, okay. And, you know, although a lot of the oil money investment comes in and goes out, at least there's a little that, you know, we benefit from. So that's all gone.
Then there's the next one is the remittances.
Well, you know, one of the top 5 flows of foreign currency to this country is remittances.
Private remittances.
Private remittances, yes. And we're being told that about 20%, there are going to be about 20% job losses in the States. Jesus. Do you know what that means?
20% job losses in the US?
That's what they're saying in the West case. Do you know what that means? So all those people that are waiting for their uncle or their brother or their father to send them the $20 or $30 is gone.
Wow.
No, but think about it. I mean, let's think about it. All that remittances is gone. People building houses, you know, they send money in a trickle to build houses. That's gone. So that's huge impact. Government taxes on that is gone. Then
churches have closed, schools have closed.
Churches, you know, one of the growth sectors in this economy, if you can call it growth sector, is the churches.
The religious sector.
Religious sector, yes, it's a growth
sector.
It's a growth sector, my friend. Because if you see every 3 billboards, 2 will be a religious one. So think of all the people doing the billboards. Think of the people selling holy water.
And they won't go to church for.
Exactly. Think of the people selling olive oil. Think of the people renting chairs, canopies.
So this is even the informal economy.
Exactly.
People will feel it directly.
Exactly. People, chairs. Think of the people that sell bread in the morning at the church service.
Borges olive oil.
Borges, yeah. Don't talk about Borges. That's my family business. So,
it will suffer.
Yeah, it will suffer. You know,
no more anointing.
No more anointing.
So the religious sector is large. It's a growth sector.
Oh, it's a growth sector. With the importers, when people think about importers, they think about large importers. But, you know, there are a lot of people that depend on some importer to bring in some product for them to sell somewhere in Sridru to make some income. That's gone. Because there's nothing coming in for you to sell.
Wow.
That's gone.
So then there's the import sector will suffer. And then education, schools have closed.
Schools have closed. You know, the thing is that when people talk about the effect, they don't think of the value chain. The buffalo seller, the cocoa seller, the people that supply rice, the transporters, the Goro boys. It's all gone. Because there's nothing.
Wow.
It's all gone. You know, so this morning I was speaking to a friend of mine who runs a hotel. Occupancy is down to 10%. He has no funerals.
Not by, but to.
To, yes.
To 10%.
10%, less than 10%. So he's got no funerals, no foreign guests, no parties, no weddings.
Wow.
Nobody at the bar. And the thing about a hotel is that even if there's one person, you're going to have to put on your air conditioning. The air conditioner is going to run, your generator is running. Meanwhile, the hotel is empty.
The kitchen has to cook.
The kitchen has to cook. Nobody at the buffet. So think about it. He's got staff. He's got to pay salaries. He has a bank loan that he's got to pay. So what does he do? That's trouble. Then you have all those people doing photography, still the chairs, all those people doing the, what do you call these things in your studio? The props, the stage, the sets, you know. Decorators, all those people doing the dresses, sewing the suits, you know, it's all gone.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's gone.
So the hotel industry on its knees.
The hotel industry on its knees.
People say we don't have a national airline, so the airline industry, we shouldn't be too concerned.
But you got to remember that when the airlines come in, they use some of our services. They use a little bit of catering.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit of catering. So there's cleaning, staff on the aircraft. There's even they even have people. A lot of those that check you in are not actually directly employed by the airline staff. They're employed by somebody else. So those people could lose their jobs. So right across the economy, things are looking south. Really, things are looking south.
So, aren't there anybody benefiting? Who's going to benefit from this?
Okay, so now everything is looking south. People are staying at home. The people that are out in Bahamas with their laptops and their tablets are things like the telecom companies. There's data.
The telecom people will benefit.
They'll benefit. There's data. Everybody's buying data. Mobile money agents, they benefit.
They'll do well.
They do well. Voice data, they'll do well.
Mm-hmm.
Media houses, to the extent that you provide good content, you'll be able to build some audience that will follow you, yes, in future.
So guys, we will not go home.
Yeah.
I'm telling my team
here.
If we do good content, we'll stay on.
Delivery companies, people
Okay.
that do delivery. I mean, in the US, I know that Amazon has employed 100,000 more people.
Wow.
Yes, those who do delivery, because nobody's going out.
100,000 more people.
100,000 more people.
So they will do well.
Companies that provide digital finance services. So if you provide loans as digital, you do well. Provide savings, you provide savings digital, you do well. If you're a mobile agent, you do well. And you remember last time you came to our office, we were totally digital, end to end. You do well. I mean,
so fintech will benefit.
Fintech will benefit if you can do loans, originate and disperse electronically. You do well. And also the pharmacy shops.
Because once people are home and they can't move, they'll prefer. He wants to buy pizza. He picks from his bank thingy. He sends to the pizza guy. He brings it to his house. He's watching television.
He says, leave it there, watching television. Exactly.
Watching television. So that's the kind of thing that's going to happen.
Nobody talks to anybody.
Wow.
Yes.
But what about those who do face masks and those who sell hand sanitizers? Aren't they going to benefit?
Well, they all come under drugs in the pharmacy shops. They along the chain.
The medicine sellers.
Medicine sellers, yes, they'll benefit.
So they will benefit.
Yeah, they'll benefit.
I see. So, but if you even out those who lose as those who benefit, is it a net plus or?
Bernard, what do you think?
I mean, because again, I was told that mobile money now is in the billions.
But who benefits?
MTN, Vodafone, Tigo, Airtel,
telcos,
and then Gibbs and some people.
Telcos. But I mean,
it wouldn't be enough to offset.
No, it's too big. It's way too big. You're way too big.
So overall, it's a negative.
Oh, it has to be. It has to be. I mean, you don't need to do the math. It has to be. Think of all, import. Government is gone. Is the biggest spender. Hotels, remittances. Even.
So what would this mean for free SHS, for example? Because free SHS is heavily funded by oil revenues. And it's, I think, one of government's #1 items on the expenditure side. Right? And then they said this is a year of roads.
Well,
which is also a big expenditure item. They declared this year the year of roads.
Well.
Right? So free SHS year of roads, what's going to happen?
So in this case, in English, you say you're back to the drawing board. They've got to go back to the drawing board and rethink the priorities with the limited resources that are available. Of course, when all those projections were being made, nobody thought that this thing would happen. So you just got to go back to the drawing board and rethink the strategy. We have to rethink the strategy.
I mean, we need a new budget. The budget he read last month?
Yeah, November. I think normally read November.
Yeah, that budget will not work.
No, it won't work. Look at country like
it won't work.
Look at a country like France. They put the budget aside and say, we are spending about £320 billion to make sure that our economy doesn't crash. That's the reality. The Americans are spending over $1 trillion. The British are spending over £400 million. We don't have that kind of resources, but there are ways by which we can make things better.
So you have some suggestions?
Yeah, I have some suggestions.
Before we take the suggestions, I'm going to take you to a report by Duke Mensah-Opoku. He summarized what happened in Parliament yesterday when the Minister of Finance came. Then when we come back from there, Ken Thompson will suggest what the government needs to do. I mean, France said they are going to pay the electricity bills and rent of hotels. They are going to pump in billions of euros into the French economy. What is his proposal? But let's watch what happened in Parliament yesterday.
The Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, came to the House to brief Parliament on the fiscal impact of the coronavirus pandemic in Ghana. He announced steps by government to deal with the expected shortfalls.
Mr. Speaker, measures are being put in place to close a possible financing gap in the 2020 budget that could result from the impact of the coronavirus. These measures may include withdrawal from the Ghana Stabilization Fund occasioned by anticipated shortfalls in the ABFA. We'll come to this August House to seek for the necessary approvals when it's necessary in due course.
Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu was, however, not impressed with the details provided by the minister.
Why is conspicuously lost in your statement the state of the $100 million? We want to know whether you have committed the money as was directed by the president and for what purpose. What will the $100 million be used for?
Deputy Minister of Finance Charles Edubwahi provided details to the House on how government intends to raise the $100 million set aside for corona response.
We have put together a preparedness plan which has a detailed breakdown of the utilization of the 100 million. Of this 100 million amount, a portion will be used for various issues, including respirators, purchase of respirators, preparedness of the regions, and so forth and so on. It will be financed through a portion of funding that we'll receive through some emergency relief programs that the World Bank and the IMF have put together, as well as our own domestic resources.
So that was Deputy Finance Minister speaking. Did I hear World Bank and IMF? I thought we had left the IMF program and the president said we're not going to go back at all. But I think I heard IMF there.
These are not, these are very...
These are not ordinary times.
We're at war, and these are not ordinary times. And I don't think even countries that probably have bigger economies than us will be put on a lot of pressure. So
you have no problem hearing IMF, World Bank matter?
We have to do whatever we need to do for this country not to collapse. And the issue is not about the borrowing. The issue is what we do with the money.
Do you have a suggestion as to what we should do? You have a plan?
I have a plan.
You have a plan?
I have some suggestions.
Okay, I'll take a break.
Yes.
When we come back, you tell us what his plan is. This is the point of view. We have your comments as well. We started off by talking about social distancing, why it's important. And guys, you need to take social distancing very seriously based on what he explained, my first guest. Now, Ken Thompson is telling us that there are more losers than winners. The only winners are the telcos and the fintechs. And if you manufacture face masks, but we don't manufacture face masks here. And I think the people who do hand sanitizers, the rest are all losing. But he says there's light at the end of the tunnel. He will share his plan with us. Stay with us.
They tell me I'm just a whiskey, but I'm more than that. I'm a blend. Born from the finest single malts and grains, blended to be smooth with a warm amber glow. Admired by men and women all over the world. I'm not one of these things. I'm all of these things. Mellow, rich and generous. Because blended is better in life and in Scotch. Chivas, blended Scotch whiskey.
Drink responsibly, not for sale to persons under 18 years of age, not recommended for pregnant women. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Ago, good people of Ghana. Here are some safety measures on prevention of coronavirus. 1. Cover your mouth with tissue when you cough or sneeze. Dispose of tissue into a bin immediately you cough into it and wash your hands with soap and the running water. Avoid shaking hands and use sanitizers as often as you can. Signs and symptoms of coronavirus include fever, cough, sneezing, and difficulty in breathing. Should you experience any of these, or for more inquiries, please contact 0558 439 868. That's 0558 439 868. Or call 0509 497 700. That's 0509 497 700.
Remember to always wash your hands with soap and running water.
This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Health, the Ghana Health Service, and partners.
They tell me I'm just a whiskey, but I'm more than that. I'm a blend. Born from the finest single malts and grains, blended to be smooth with a warm amber glow. Admired by men and women all over the world. I'm not one of these things. I'm all of these things. Mellow, rich and generous. Because blended is better in life and in Scotch. Chivas, blended Scotch whisky.
Drink responsibly, not for sale to persons under 18 years of age, not recommended for pregnant women. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
Welcome back to The Point of View. My guest, Ken Thompson, for this part. We're discussing the effect of COVID-19 on the economy. Now, these are even conservative, because we don't know if it's going to be up to June or July.
Yeah.
China started this January. We're in March. Even though the graph is coming down, they are not out.
They're on lockdown.
And they shut down Wuhan. They sprayed the whole country. Somebody sent me a text that from January 23, he's not gone out of his house. And we are not even doing that. So it seems as if ours may be longer. So even these things you're saying, you are being conservative.
Well, yeah.
Because it could be worse.
Yeah, it could be much, but it definitely won't be 4 weeks. It can't be 4 weeks.
4 weeks is too short.
No, it's too short. It's too short.
We are losing money from remittances, religious activities, import, trade, education, hospitality, transport, public sector. Only telcos, online trading, and digital finance and pharmaceuticals are benefiting. Fair enough. What's your solution?
We really need a stimulus package. I mean, I have different kinds of solutions. We need a stimulus package, yes.
Okay.
But because a lot of our economy is informal, if we provide direct support, the money will be chopped. They'll chop the money. So what do? First, I think it's a good time to reward those that pay taxes. So, for example, what the government should say is that we are suspending the payment of PAYE and SSF, and the money will be given to the employees. Suspend.
What's SS? Social Security?
Social Security, yes. Social Security. So, for example, I mean, your cameraman is paid, 2,000 cedis. Out of that, Social Security, FSF, at least 300 cedis of sort. So, give it to them. At least that will put more money in their pocket.
So, convert their net to gross.
To gross, exactly.
So, that gross, give everything to them.
Give everything to them, yes.
So, they have more money in their pocket.
Okay, exactly. And you see, it will benefit people who are more vulnerable. Because for you, Bernard, if that SSF and PAY is given to you, probably you say, okay, it's no big deal. But it will benefit the majority of your people. It's also possible to help with indirect taxes, because most of our taxes are indirect. People are home. They don't have cash. They are using data and they are calling. Cut the communication service tax.
Okay.
Yes, cut the communication service tax.
Okay.
We should also look at looking at the fuel tax, reduce the fuel tax. What happens? So if we reduce fuel tax, it reduces the cost of transportation. If the cost of transportation reduces, it manages or reduces the cost of food. Yes. That will at least keep prices in check.
So remove a CST because people will be using more data, reduce taxes on fuel to make transportation prices cheaper.
And food.
And then food will also come down.
Yeah.
Return people's social security and pay to them.
Yes, okay. We also.
But does government pay for that later?
Well.
Because if you don't contribute for your social security, how are you going to get a pension?
Well, we'll deal with that later. Now it's an emergency.
Okay.
We are this is an emergency. This is not a time to say we will pay later.
What about VAT?
VAT. Well, you probably reduce VAT as well, because indirect as well. Okay. Then also, we need liquidity.
Okay.
We really need liquidity. So, for example, this hotel that is suffering because it's not able to have any guests, suspend the loan repayments for maybe 6 months. And then also, the central bank has recently said that it's cleaning up the financial sector. So it needs to find a way to provide liquidity to the finance companies, microfinance companies, so that they can support the more vulnerable people in our society. Yeah, we really need liquidity. And then there must be rigorous monitoring of the economy to make sure that we don't go into recession. because the job losses, the bankruptcies.
We haven't even recovered from the financial sector. In fact, today, one of the stories I read was all customers of the fund managers, they say the government should pay them because payment hasn't started. SEC hasn't started paying because they say they are doing validation, and they're basically saying, you need to pay us. So even though they've dealt with banks, savings and loans and microfinance, the fund management customers haven't been paid anything at all. Is that part of your stimulus package?
No, if I add that to my stimulus package, then really we're in
because
trouble.
you have hundreds of thousands of customers whose investments have been locked up.
What I'll say is that resources are finite, and we've got to find a way to let it go around until things become normal. But resources are finite. They're not infinite. That's all I can say. But we're in serious times, and we've got to take serious action.
But hold on. You initially told me that the government is going to lose oil revenue, no new oil exploration, and import duties going. So government revenue is already coming down. And you're also saying, I just want to understand something. So I think the government is going to suffer.
So what did you say about the I? What did you say? I what?
I what?
IMF.
Okay, so we should go for money from them.
We don't have a choice. But what choices do we have?
Wow.
No, but Bernard, what choice do we have?
I don't know. We are doing planting for food and jobs. We are doing 1D, 1F and some things.
Yes.
So we may have to go for extra money from IMF.
We may have to go for extra money for. I can see it coming. But government revenues have crashed. Companies are down. Companies are grinding to a halt. What do you do?
Wow.
No. What do you do?
Okay, let me read what the financier said he would do. He says it may include withdrawal from the Ghana Stabilization Fund, which is money we set aside from our revenues. So basically, they will dip their hands into the Stabilization Fund. And then he also said they are in discussion with the World Bank to tap into a 12 billion COVID-19 facility. They've already given it a name.
Yes.
IMF to access part of a 10 billion facility. And then they are going to possibly approve and raise 3 billion, all these are dollars, from the Eurobond again. So more borrowing.
More borrowing.
Wow. Then the fiscal rule and the fiscal things are all out of the window?
I think so. I think you can reliably say that as things stand at the moment, we have to take a look at how to save the situation and decide what to do after that.
Wow.
But Bernard,
so we should swallow our pride with all this fiscal, won't go beyond X% fiscal deficit, election year thing. All those things out of the window.
Those were not things we did out of pride. We were. You have money. You drink 5 bottles of beer every day, and you go to somebody to borrow, and he says, "Well, you can only drink 2, and the rest you pay cash." It's not as if it was something that. We wanted to do that only because then it would allow us to do the other things that are necessary for us to develop. But we're in difficult times. These are difficult times. These are really difficult times.
Wow.
So I expect some drastic measures to be taken. I think that so far, at least we're lucky that we don't have any in-country infections. But as a people, what I would say is that let's be very aggressive in preventing any infections. Let's listen to all the advice because the consequences...
what opportunity does this provide for... Because you know that a lot of countries are no longer trading. So what does this provide for, say, local manufacturing, self-dependence and those types of things?
Okay. So, I've heard a lot of talk about, local manufacturing. Manufacturing maybe no, because you have to import...
The parts.
Okay.
What about agro-processing?
Agro-processing, you can deal with it. Maybe if you start to grow corn in your backyard, start to do some rabbits, if you start to grow some sheep, maybe that's what we should be looking. And I've said a long time ago that the level of imports of food was a threat to national security. Maybe this is a time to look at it again.
Food imports is a national security issue.
Of course, because if you are importing from, I don't know where, Thailand, wherever country, and decide to make you hungry, you upset them, they say, we won't give you food anymore. What happens? We're in trouble. But we must at the same time use this as an opportunity to provide incentives for people to grow locally. You need to provide incentives. I mean, when we talk about people doing things locally, but then we end up not giving them any incentives to do it. Because as any good economist will tell you, if you want to change behavior, provide incentives.
Let me read some comments for you. Hi, Bernard. Per our import data, it's obvious we can use this pandemic situation to shut down our import doors on rice, fish, plus other top imports, consumables such as chicken, tomato paste, etc. Our top imports are cars, $793 million, delivery trucks, 442, refined petroleum, 415, rice, 369. All these are dollars. And non-fillet frozen fish, 278, Justice of Fair. Good evening, guys. We need to do more as a country in combating this coronavirus. I think we should close the airport completely. Emmanuel Nasa from Tamale. Hi, Bernard. Why is it that the president is putting the lives of the third-year students of BC and WASC candidates at risk, for which we know very well that some of our schools have large numbers? Concerned parents need our children home. Bernard, fantastic simulation for easy understanding. Chris from Bichem. Good evening, guys. Thanks for increasing my knowledge. I really appreciate the graphical explanation your panelists gave. I believe if we follow the measures the President and WHO have given, we will be out of the woods soon. Douglas Dokenu, Latibia Koshi. Once aircrafts are cutting down passengers by half, I think GPRTU should also compel trotros and taxis to do same to ensure the social distancing is achieved. I'm in a trotro from Tema to Accra, and it's packed like sardines. Thanks, Emma. Thanks for watching me whilst you're in the trotro. What's the point to adhering to the President's directive when the NIA is seen flouting this directive? Kofi, Ghana Medical Association has said that the NIA should stop. NIA has announced that they've stopped, I think, or they haven't, I'm not sure. But GMA said the NIA should stop the registration. I don't know if they would do this. But I think people who peddle falsehood about COVID-19 should be sanctioned. Just this evening, a radio station announced that Ghana has recorded 3 casualties as a result of COVID-19. Emmanuel, it's correct. It's 3 Ghanaians who live outside Ghana have died. 1 in Denmark, 2 in Italy. Maybe they didn't announce it properly. No Ghanaian has died in country, but the foreign minister announced that 3 Ghanaians had died outside Ghana. Bernard, ask your guest if the world's economy may survive this within a short time, or if it may take a long while. Is this 1929 all over again?
I have no idea, Bernard. Who knows? I mean, who knows? I don't know. What I know is that everything is going south.
For the world?
For the world. What it will look like in a few years, I honestly don't know.
You don't know?
I honestly don't know.
What I know is I'll bring you back again. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Bernard.
Thank you for watching. Earlier on, I had a health economist in the person of Nana Kofi Kwachi on the show. Ken Thompson, my guest as well. Stay safe, keep distance, wash your hands, drink a lot of fluids. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on City TV's YouTube channel. Subscribe for more videos on The Point of View. My name is Bernard Avle. Thank you.
The Point of View with Bernard Avle, Monday and Wednesday nights, only on City TV.